Welcome to the Practice Brave podcast. I am the host, Brianna Battles, founder of Pregnancy and Postpartum Athleticism and CEO of Everyday Battles. I'm a career strength and conditioning coach, entrepreneur, mom of 2 wild little boys, and a lifelong athlete. I believe that athleticism does not end when motherhood begins, and this podcast is dedicated to coaching you by providing meaningful conversations, insights, and interview topics related to fitness, mindset, parenting, and of course, all the nuances of pregnancy and postpartum. From expert interviews to engaging conversations and reflections, this podcast is your trustworthy, relatable resource for learning how to practice brave through every season in your life. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Practice Brave podcast. Today, I wanted to have more of like a personal conversation with you. My little one, Chance, is turning 7 in a couple weeks here. And a lot of you may or may not know the story, what makes him such a special kid. But I wasn't sure I wanted to have a second baby after the birth of my first son, Cade. I had a really traumatic labor and delivery experience with Cade. And honestly, just a really brutal first year-ish of motherhood with how I felt mentally, physically, emotionally. It was just it was really hard for me to acclimate to becoming a mom. And, a lot of those struggles are what prompted my work and the whole reason I have this podcast and this business today. But when it came to wanting and the decision to have another baby, I called Chance like my miracle baby because I didn't even feel like I was ready to consider having another baby until I was over 3 years postpartum. And for the longest time, there was so much back and forth with, am I going to have another baby? Am I not? People would ask me questions. And then there was like this weird sense of urgency that I didn't feel urgent because, felt like I was just still trying to get my feet under me, so to speak, as a mom and like figure things out with Cade, because he's just been a ball of energy and spirit from literally, day one. So I didn't feel like, maybe now is a good time to consider having a baby. I was like, how can anyone even think about having another baby? I really couldn't understand that during some of maybe the more typical timelines, I suppose, where people have babies 18 months apart or 2 years apart or even 3 years apart. I never felt like that would ever be practical for how I felt mentally and emotionally, especially. So there was this weird sense of, do I want to have another baby? Do I not? And then you get the opinions of other people. And it just felt like a really overwhelming decision because while I liked the idea of Cade having a sibling, of us having another baby, the follow through of what that actually meant and essentially the risk that it would pose felt really overwhelming. And it wasn't until I was 3 years postpartum that I felt like, maybe I should consider this. Maybe I could do that again. I don't know. And I just started to feel like that sense of uncertainty, but also a little bit more confidence in my ability to handle having another baby, to go through another pregnancy, to experience postpartum, to go into birth again. None of that felt like I could even consider until I was close to about 3 years postpartum. And this is just like my process. And unless you've had a really traumatic birth, this may not be something you can relate to, and that is okay. So I want to talk specifically about this 4-year age gap because I actually get a lot of questions about that. And I find it special. And I actually remember Googling when I was, again, thinking about having another baby, like 4-year age gap. And there just wasn't a lot. There's a lot of like 2-year age gaps, a lot of 3-year age gaps, or then like a lot of really significant age gaps, like where they're 10 years apart, maybe a second marriage or whatever it might be, just a larger age gap between kids. But I couldn't find anything that really talked a lot about this 4-year age gap that I would likely be having. And I wanted to know, like, what's it actually like? Are they close? What does it feel like? What does it look like? I don't even really know what I was Googling and searching for, but I wanted to feel like I had some kind of insight because it just wasn't a popular thing. And I had a lot of people kind of chirping, saying things to the effect of, like, you don't want to wait too long, or they're not going to be close if you wait any further or any longer. And just like some kind of shitty things to say to somebody. Like, there are so many reasons people choose to not have another baby or choose to wait, or maybe it's not their choice. Maybe they've navigated loss and just whatever kind of life struggle. Like, you never know. So first of all, like, don't impose on somebody like that and give your opinions, because that's just really an unfair commentary for any parent who's navigating fertility and like family dynamics at any period of time. But it became like this feeling of, if I do this, is this like a weird age gap? Is this going to be something that I struggle with, that my boys will struggle with, or my kids would struggle with? And then again, this like sense of urgency, both like internal urgency of like, well, if I'm going to do it, I should really think about doing it. And then also this societal thing of like, you want your kids to be closer. It's so much better to have them close in age, and you go through this season of life at the same time. You don't have to like start over. If you wait any further, you're just going to be starting over. Again, people have so many freaking opinions, and they give you their unsolicited opinions and advice. And again, that does not make any of this easier. So please take what I'm saying today as like, I'm talking about what I experience. I don't think there's any right way to have a family, and it looks different for every single person. So catch me not having any kind of dogmatic opinion about that. But for me, I knew ultimately I did want to have a second child. Some sentiments that influenced that kind of beyond my own personal feelings and emotions was that my grandma is an only child. She's 94 years old. And something that she had said throughout many times in our life, like, so just growing up, hearing my grandma talk about things, is how much she wished she had a sibling. And again, this isn't to like, I'm sharing my unique family experiences. Like, again, you do you. If just having one child is what's right for your family, your choice, or your circumstance, then please, please, please hear me and just like hear what I'm trying to say, which is, it has nothing to do with the choices and circumstances that you may have. So my grandma would share throughout many different times how much she wished she had a sibling. Her first husband died of ALS. Her second husband, and she was probably in her 50s maybe when that happened. And it was before I was born. And then her second husband, he lived a lot longer. He died of lung cancer. Her son died of a brain tumor. My grandma's had like significant loss in her life. And of course, her parents passed away. And throughout so much loss, throughout so many of her different life experiences, the highs and the lows, something she'd always said was like how she just wished she had somebody to do this with. She wished that there was somebody to kind of like bear the load of like emotional and like physical support that is needed navigating so much of life experiences. And of course, a sibling does not guarantee that kind of built-in support necessarily. Again, I know there's so many different sibling dynamics out there. But I know that in some ways there was like hurt, and almost it would sound like an underlying like resentment that like she was so frustrated that she had to do so much alone, that she was forced to be so independent at such a young age. She was born in, oh God, I don't know. She's 94, guys, do the math. But she lived through like the Great Depression. She's had a lot of like hardship throughout her life and a lot of having to raise herself. Her parents worked and really struggled. And there's just this ongoing theme of hating that she had to experience so much by herself and always wanting to have another sibling. So now, fast forward a few decades, my cousin, her name is Jenna, she and my sister and I were raised really closely together. And her dad was my mom's brother, and he was diagnosed with a brain tumor when he was in his early 40s. And that was like really hard on our family. He was like a dad to my sister and I, because we didn't really grow up with our biological dad in our life, and our families were really close. So my mom, unfortunately lost her brother, and we lost my uncle, when he was, I think around 45. I don't know. I was in high school when that happened, and it was a huge loss for our family. And then a few years later, his wife, my aunt, also tragically passed away. And Jenna, my cousin, was an only child, and she has experienced so much loss at such a young age. She lost both of her parents before she could even graduate from college. So she was in her early 20s, and having to navigate life alone. And it was really hard, despite like all of us trying to rally and support. I know that it was like, wasn't probably in some ways still is so incredibly lonely not having that sibling support. So those two things influenced my life, my life very uniquely, because I saw that unfold. And my mom, sister, and I were such, and still are, such a close unit. You know, she was a single mom, and it was just the three of us girls for such a long time before she met and married my stepdad. And so I knew the value of having really good relationships with my sister and my mom. That's not to say that my sister and I didn't fight and we still don't drive each other absolutely nuts. Even in our 30s, we are such bitches to each other sometimes. But I saw two powerful and very close to me examples in my life of why there was such a unique desire to have a close family, to have a sibling to go through life with, to navigate the different challenges and unexpected aspects of life. And again, I understand that there's so many aspects of family dynamics that we just absolutely do not have control over. There are plenty of siblings that are not close, for whatever circumstance or reason. But those just felt like two very in my face situations where I heard and saw often how much there was a desire to go through life with a sibling. And even my mom now, who lost her brother years ago, over 20 years ago, so she's right now an only child. She's caring for my grandma who has dementia. And there's so many times she's just like, God, I wish I had my brother here. I wish I had my brother here. And she says that all the time. She misses him so much. And also just this magnitude of having a partner who you're not like married to. A sibling is your longest friend if you are lucky, right? It's your longest friend if you're lucky. And I've just seen these examples play out in my life. And so I couldn't shut that off. I couldn't shut off those examples in my head when I was thinking about is having another child right for my family, right for our choices, right for us. I couldn't shut that off. So by 3 years postpartum, I felt like, now is the time that I would consider having another baby. Unfortunately, and fortunately, I should say, we were able to get pregnant. My pregnancy was healthy. I mean, I was going into it so much more informed and in a much better place than I had been, at least in terms of information and how to train and what my body needed to try to, preserve my abs and pelvic floor and just overall performance long-term. I had started my business. I was surrounded by a lot of supportive people. I was just in a better place in a lot of ways to go into pregnancy and almost validate so much of what I'd been coaching, so much of what I'd been teaching, so much of what I had learned. It was now my opportunity to walk the talk again in a totally different way than I had approached my first pregnancy and what that first postpartum experience had been like. I just was in a better place to navigate that because, again, I had more information and I had more specific support for who I was and what I needed. Now, I had Chance at 39 weeks pregnant, and this was in August, on August 5th. And so my boys are just at 4 years apart, like 4 years and 6 weeks or something like that apart. During that time, Cade, he was a wild little toddler. So he had a broken arm the entire summer where I was extremely pregnant. And if you don't know this, I grow like very large babies. Some of you were around for those seasons of life. So like I've had 2 10-pound babies, so freaking rude, right? I'm 5'3" for context. I know I don't look that short online, but I'm like kind of a compact human. And so I just like have really, really large babies. And, it was a much, much, much better birth and labor, or I guess just like birth experience in general. I had a repeat gentle cesarean, and that made all the difference in the world. All of the difference in the world in terms of like how I felt mentally, physically, and emotionally, both going into his birthday and also like recovering from that. Just such a much more empowering and supportive experience. So that already felt like a win. Like it already felt like a win knowing that I was going into this, feeling more informed, feeling more supportive. And I wasn't entering motherhood for a second time, feeling like I had failed, because that's how it felt after I had Cade. I had this baby. It was supposed to be the best day of my life. And all I could do is think about how much like my body had just experienced and was struggling. And I was sad and hurt and in pain and honestly just like devastated. It felt like such an awful entrance to motherhood. And so to have this second chance, so to speak, was so healing. And, I'd say to every mom who's struggled with maybe having a C-section it is not how the baby comes out that matters. Like there's no right or best way to have a baby. It is how you feel in that moment, in that experience, that honestly determines what is best and right for you. So my second birth was a gentle C-section. I got to have him chest to chest in the OR, and was able to breastfeed him there. And it felt like such an empowering experience because I was supported, I was informed. It wasn't this traumatic thing. It was just a lot more variables were in my control. And that is what I needed to go into this second experience without so much anxiety, without so much fear, without trauma taking over, because that was really hard to go into that again. And I felt scared. So 4 years, 4-year age gap, I had a crazy toddler and this new baby. But what was nice is, when I reflect back on that, Cade had started preschool, so he could go to school a few days a week. I think he was going like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday or something like that at the time. And so it felt like so much more manageable for me to just have like one-on-one time with the baby, with Chance, while he was at preschool, so that it wasn't like this zone defense all the time. And I know a lot of moms that have babies closer together, like they're home and it is zone defense all the time with their kids. And that can just be really hard. It can be really hard because for me, I get really overstimulated. I get really anxious, get overwhelmed. And then like that would like fuel the ragey feelings. And that was not fair to my kids. So I had to have some systems in place that would allow me to, have that space and have that time with them where I wasn't completely overstimulated or feel like I was drowning. So there was a lot more things in place that helped with navigating those first, that first year-ish postpartum with Chance. And again, having that 4-year age gap was really nice because of having the built-in preschool and just a little bit more support. Because when I had Cade, I didn't have support. I didn't have a babysitter. I didn't have a nanny. I didn't have daycare. It was me and me trying to work and do all of the things all at the same time. And so with Chance, I worked for myself. I had just launched my coaching certification program a few weeks prior to having a baby. I felt so much more in control of my life and in my reality. And I had a good group of people around me. The clients that I was coaching at the time were all really supportive. So I didn't feel this pressure of like, oh my gosh, you have to get back to work right away. Like I could coach on my own terms. I could, do that while Cade was at preschool. And then Chance just in general was such a more chill baby. So that made a huge difference too, because Cade was really tough. Like he cried all the time. everything was hard. Nursing was hard. His temperament was hard. Everything was just so freaking intense with him. And then with Chance, he was just like this like chill, happy little dude who just was like my sidekick. So it couldn't be more different. And yeah, I was like, of course it was hard. There's definitely moments of hard, but I think a big fear of mine was that I was just going to have another mini Cade, especially when I found out he was going to be a boy. I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like I was hoping it'd be a girl. So then it'd automatically be a little bit more of like a difference in experience. So when I found out like it's another boy, I was like, oh shit, I cannot handle this. Like I absolutely cannot. Like I was like I was super sad, to be honest, because it just made me feel like almost more affirmation that it was going to be such a similar experience again. But then, like no two babies are the same at all. And, they didn't even look that much alike. They just had very different temperaments, and Chance was just an easier soul to acclimate to and to take care of. And also, I was a different mom. So that's something I try to tell everyone too, especially if you've had like a rough go with your first baby. It's like you are not the same mom that you were that first time around. You have different perspective. You have, I call it like more like motherhood maturity. You know how to approach things differently. You know, like what hills to not die on, right? Like I was so much less rigid in my belief systems and my approach and what I was like okay with or not okay with. With Cade, I was adamant about breastfeeding. I was like, absolutely no formula. No. Like gotta be this way with nap schedule and feeding and blah, blah, blah. And with Chance, I was like, no, like we have to have a lot more flexibility and adaptability because there's another baby to take care of too, because there's still Cade, because I have this business, because my husband worked crazy hours. Like you were like forced to be more adaptable, or I was forced to be more adaptable with the second baby. So, with this age gap was really nice because it allowed me to have more time with just one baby, but then, Cade was still very much around and he was able to help more. He was so excited to have a brother. And one of my like favorite memories is like when Chance was just like hanging out in a little rocker thing. Like Cade would like throw a football at him. I was like, bro, he can't catch yet. Like he can't catch. You can't throw a football at him. And so throughout the last almost 7 years now, these boys, Chance is going to be 7. So yeah, like they've been able to really grow up with each other and they are friends. They are close. These are the things that I think are really important for parents to hear who aren't doing the 2 or 3 year age gap that is so common, is that my kids play together and they fight like crazy. Don't get me wrong, they freaking fight. And if you've got boy energy, you know what I mean? Like it is a loud, aggressive, chaotic house. They antagonize the shit out of each other. Things are not like perfect here by any means, but something that I have seen that has been really special over the last couple of years in particular. So, like Cade just turned 11 and Chance is turning 7. So I'd say from like, once Chance was maybe like 5 or so, like him and Cade could play together as peers also, like when they kind of like go from being like toddler into little boy, that stage, I've been able to witness this really cool evolution of their brotherhood where, yes, again, they still absolutely fight. They still absolutely drive each other crazy, but they also hang out. They have a lot in common. Chance really looks up to Cade and he can hold his own. Oh my God, can he hold his own in so many ways. And since moving to Idaho, we have so many little kids on this street in general. And a lot of them are older than Chance. They're closer to Cade's age or maybe like just a couple years older than Chance. They're kind of like right in between. So anyway, Chance is the youngest one, but he's able to hang with all of these big kids and is welcomed into that. He is part of that group. And that was something I was actually really afraid of, was like, oh, are they not going to be like, have things in common? Because they're going to be too far apart in age to have things in common. And that just has not been the situation for me. And I understand, again, this is not everybody's experience. But I know when I was thinking about having another baby, it was really important for me to try to like learn, well, what have people's experiences been like with this 4-ish year age gap? And so that's why I wanted to share mine. Yeah, I'm seeing them play together a lot more. Chance still, of course, is heavily influenced by Cade, and everything he thinks is cool. But, you know, Cade also has done a really good job of like embracing his brother and welcoming him and knowing like they're kind of a package deal a lot of the times. Like we just had a combo birthday party. Because Cade's born at the end of June, Chance is born beginning of August. Summer is a shit show in my household. So we were like, okay, fine, one combo birthday sometime in July. Cool. So we had this combo birthday party, and the irony is like, yes, Chance had his like handful of friends, but then like all of Cade's friends are also Chance's friends. Like they are this odd package deal. And it's just something that like over, honestly, pretty recently, I've just really kind of paid more attention to and has felt really special to see unfold, because for so long I thought, oh God, like they're going to be too far apart in age, or whatever stories were told, whatever things we just make assumptions about. And I've been able to see how close they actually are. And they seem a lot closer in age than they actually are. But, you know, I mean, there's maybe a few factors attached to that, but, you know, we try to do a lot as a family. We try to act as a unit, and just the dynamics of our neighborhood, they run as a pack, and this pack it's absolutely chaotic. I'm sure if you've seen my Instagram stories, you know, like it is absolutely chaotic with these groups of boys that come running through. But I love that my boys have each other, and it's been cool to see this evolution of their brotherhood, of our family dynamic, of what it looks like, and then just kind of affirming that like it all actually works out, and it can work out so much better than you anticipated. And no, we don't have control over everything. We don't have control over, honestly, we don't have control over much at all. But I think a huge sentiment I talk about is, you know, our ability to practice brave. It's taking that risk, it's taking that chance, and it's understanding that we can't control everything, but we can work at practicing brave steps, one thing at a time. And over time, you become brave. Over time, you create the reality that you desire, and you can adapt and you can adjust. And there's just so much opportunity there to, when you practice being brave, to create the life that you desire, even if it's not what you thought it was going to be, even if it looks so different. And that's certainly a theme that has repeated itself and slapped me across the face multiple times. Even though I preach this shit, you know, you think I really understand that more now, but it just keeps getting reaffirmed, and it's been cool seeing their brotherhood evolve. I love the 4-year age gap. It's been really positive for our family. And I don't know what it's going to look like as they get older. I don't know. Now, maybe it'll change. I don't know. But I'd like to think that, you know, we're doing everything we can to just embrace this particular season in life. And up until like this point, it's been really positive, from babyhood to toddler and little kid to little kid and slightly older kid now, before entering the preteen years. Like throughout every season so far, they've of course been very different and all have different demands and different levels of stress and chaos. But it has worked really well. This particular dynamic, this particular unit has worked out really well for us. And whenever we let the opinions of others or our fears or whatever like dictate our choices, we're losing. You don't want to take that kind of loss, because everyone's going to have an opinion. And like, I just was not ready to have a baby until I was ready to have a baby. And that timeline looks different for every single person. Even the choice to have a baby or not is different for every single person. I wanted to share what my reality has been, my current season of life is, and for anybody who may need to hear this, which might be like 3 of you, I don't know. But it's been a really positive family dynamic for us. And I'm very grateful that these boys have each other. And I hope and pray that they continue to grow together, that they have each other, that they are each other's longest friend. And that would mean more to me than anything, is for them to grow up having each other and remaining close and having so many of these shared experiences and friendships and memories together. I think that's something that's really beautiful and something that I know has honestly made my grandma really, really happy to see in her lifetime. She loves that those boys have each other. And, and that was something that she would talk to me about back then. And it's just something that I felt compelled to share coming up on Chance's 7th birthday here in a couple of weeks. And just this combo birthday party just had me thinking like, man, I can't believe all that has actually worked out better than I could have even imagined. I thought they were going to be like totally kind of like separate seasons of life, but ultimately like we're creating our own season of life. And that's been really special to see. And we get to choose how that looks and how to make that happen. So I just wanted to share that. Again, like a different, more personal episode today, a little rambly, but I wanted to give as much context as possible. And again, I support you in whatever your choices and circumstances may lead you. I just wanted to share what mine have been like over the last few years. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Practice Brave podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review and help us spread the work we are doing to improve the overall information and messaging in the fitness industry and beyond. Now, if you are pregnant and you are looking for a trustworthy exercise program to follow, I have you covered. The Pregnant Athlete Training Program is a well-rounded program for pregnancy with workouts for each week that are appropriate for your changing body. That's 36 weeks of workouts, 3 to 4 workouts each week, and tons of guidance on exercise strategy. We also have an at-home version of that program. If you are postpartum and you're looking for an exercise program to follow, the 8-week postpartum athlete training program would be a really great way to help bridge the gap between rehab and the fitness you actually want to do. From there, we have the Practice Brave Fitness program, which is an ongoing strength and conditioning program where you get new workouts each week and have a lot of guidance from myself and my co-coach, Heather Osby. This is the only way that I'm really offering ongoing coaching at this point in time. If you have ever considered becoming a certified pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach, I would love to have you join us. Pregnancy and Postpartum Athleticism is a self-paced online certification course that will up-level your coaching skills and help connect the dots between pelvic health and long-term athletic performance, especially during pregnancy and postpartum. Become who you needed and become who your online and local community needs by becoming a certified pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach. Thank you again for listening to the Practice Brave podcast. I appreciate you. And please help me continue spreading this messaging, this information, and this work.